Hi, I'm Tina Crowley with Trinity Real Estate in B North of Boston, and we're visiting with my friend and attorney, Dave Ceruolo, and we're going to talk about real estate attorneys. So Dave, if I have a client or somebody calls you and they're going to buy or sell a piece of property, they're going to buy or sell real estate, and they're wondering, why do I need an attorney for the transaction?
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll try to make them feel comfortable on the phone, talk with them a little bit, try to get some details as to what type of property they're selling, who they're dealing with.
Sure.
And then I'll tell them, look, this is one of the biggest transactions that you're going to make in your lifetime. You know, these folks can be individuals selling their personal property, they can be investors, it's still going to be a big transaction. And when that happens, there are a lot of contracts that will be going their way or coming their way to sign. So they don't want somebody to take a look at those contracts and decipher what's there and make sure that all the terms and conditions that they want are inside that contract, along with language to protect them. So you don't want to be signing contracts without an attorney taking a look at that stuff. That's legal work.
Right.
The realtor's not going to be able to do that.
No, we cannot.
So that's one facet of it. So this is just in general. Another facet would be that you want an advocate in your corner, someone who's going to be able to talk to another attorney, someone at the bank, another realtor.
Sure.
So in that respect, you're going to want somebody that's versed.
Sure. So say, for example, you have a buyer and the seller has an attorney, but the buyer does not have an attorney. How lopsided can things get?
It can get very lopsided because if there are issues that arise, well, first of all, as I mentioned, with the contracts, one party will have an attorney inserting language in there to protect that party, and the party that doesn't have an attorney is not going to have anybody looking at the language that's there.
Sure.
So that language could say anything, and once again, the realtor's not going to be able to, the realtor's not supposed to advise a client on legal matters. They're supposed to say, you should engage an attorney if you have questions on these things, because I'm not an attorney.
Sure.
So in that respect, it's dangerous.
Right.
Very dangerous. And so with that, there's a lot of other legal issues that can arise during the transaction. There can be tenants involved.
Sure.
There can be leases. There can be title issues that arise down the line, which have to be addressed, explained, deciphered.
Sure. And even in a transaction, say you're representing the seller and the buyer is having issues with financing, they're asking for extensions. At some point, you're going to advise the seller their legal rights and what's happening with maybe extensions, maybe to talk to them about appraisals and what all that all that stuff means.
Yeah, so when it comes to extensions, so a purchase and sale agreement or an offer, both of those are contracts that are signed, at least in Massachusetts, those are both contracts that are signed. There's going to be a timeline inside those documents. You need someone that's going to understand the timeline and what those dates mean. The big date is the closing.
Right.
It's the end, right? And even with that, you should have an attorney review the bank documents before you sign them. But when it comes to financing commitment, right, the contingency, a contingency, first of all, is a condition that's got to be met within a contract before the contract can go forward. So whether it's a buyer or a seller, they need to understand that that particular date inside the purchase and sale agreement is going to bind, well, first of all, will bind the buyer.
Sure.
So if that date passes and the buyer doesn't have their financing contingency from the bank, then the deposit gets locked into the deal. So if the buyer can't perform at the time of closing, they lose the deposit.
Right.
Now on the other side with the seller, if the buyer continuously comes back, which is your question, if the buyer continuously comes back and is continuously asking for extensions, the seller's got to understand that if they continue to extend that date, that extends the period of time in which the buyer can walk away, receive the deposit, and cancel the deal.
Right.
So something like that, it's an important concept.
Right.
You should understand.
Right.